fires of Troy were still burning when the ships began to turn. Their glow followed across the water, a distant, restless light that lingered on the horizon. No songs, no voices raised in triumph. Only the sea. The ships moved slowly, drawn forward by the steady rhythm of the oars. Wood against water, over and over, without urgency. Behind them, Troy faded. Before them, the open expanse. Not glory, not victory. Something quieter, something far more fragile. The thought of home. No walls to break, no enemy to face, no clear end to reach, only distance and the long, uncertain return. On the deck of one patient vessel, a man stood, suspended in stillness. The bronze had left his hands. The weight of war had loosened its hold on his shoulders. This is Odysseus, not yet the triumphant king of songs, not yet the figure carried through centuries, not yet the name shaped by poets. Only a man, tired of the roar of battle, listening at last to the slow and indifferent pulse of the sea. The sea stretched endlessly before them, calm and without answer. Slowly, almost without noticing, the world they had known began to fall away. And the long journey, already older than memory, waits without impatience in the dark. You're about to slip into the pillow vault. Here, stories are not hurried. They are allowed to drift. In this quiet vault of night, old journeys unfold slowly. Nothing insists. Nothing demands. Tonight, the Odyssey. The oars have ceased their rhythm. The sea touches the hull, withdraws and returns again. A rounded sound, continuous, like breathing that no longer belongs to anyone in particular. Above, the stars hold their distances. The ship rests beneath them. Odysseus rests. The water is a slow, rhythmic weight, pressing against the ancient, salt-softened timber of the hull. In this late hour, the waves of the Aegean do not reflect the sky, so much as they absorb it, turning the surface into a shifting skin of charcoal, oil, and liquid silver. There is a specific sound to the sea at rest. A hollow percussive lap that occurs when a small swell meets the underside of the prow. It is a sound that has no beginning and no end. It is simply the pulse of the place. A low hum that resonates through the oak planks and settles into the body of the vessel. The air is thick, holding a density that only arrives when the sun has long since retreated, leaving behind a residue of salt silt and the cooling breath of the deep. Beneath the deck, the interior of the hold is a world of shadow, cooling as it descends below the waterline. Here, the scent of the sea is transformed into a heavy brine-soaked perfume of ancient oak and the black pitch used to seal the seams. The ballast stones shift with a low grinding resonance against the inner hull. The stacks of grain in their coarse burlap sacks have a dry, dusty aroma. Beside them, the amphorae of wine are cold to the touch, their clay surfaces sweating in the humid dark, held in place by ropes that smell of salt and old sweat. Odysseus remains at the stern as the coastline of Troy recedes into a pale blur. Around him, the men move with measured restraint. The sound of the land, the distant cries of the gulls, is gradually replaced by the sounds of the ship. There is the creak of the mast, a sound like a heavy door opening slowly on its hinges, and the snap of the canvas as it catches the first true breeze of the open sea. The wind is steady, though no stronger than necessary. Sails fill, ropes tighten softly. Wood answers the pull of the current with a low, patient murmur. The sound here is the muffled thud of a rope hitting the deck, and the distant rhythmic sawing of a carpenter making final repairs to a rudder. The sound echoing through the rafters like a slow wooden heartbeat. As the first hint of grey begins to separate the sky from the sea, boots move over the planks with a measured, unhurried pace. The ship, a sturdy merchant galley, sits low in the water, a dark, curved silhouette against the pale shimmer of the horizon. The ship, a sturdy merchant galley, sits low in the water, a dark, curved silhouette against the pale shimmer of the horizon. The textures of the vessel are visceral. The roughness of the hempen ropes, thick and salt-crusted, the slickness of the tar used to seal the seams, the cool, smooth surface of the polished wood railings. Every inch of the ship feels purposeful. As the lines are cast off, there is a slow, almost imperceptible increase in the distance between the hull and the land. The water swirls in the gap, a dark churning green, filled with tiny bubbles that catch the emerging light. The galley begins to find its rhythm. The oars, at first moving with a tentative splashing cadence, soon settle into a deep, synchronized stroke. Each entry into the water is a clean, hollow sound, followed by the rush of the sea being pushed aside. The light catches the salt crystals forming on the rigging. The wind shifts, cooling the side of the face and carrying away the last scents of the city, the smoke of the hearths and the smell of the damp earth. The air is cleaner here, replaced by a sharp, invigorating saltiness that settles on the skin. The taste of the air is the taste of the journey itself, mineral cold and vast. As the coastline of the Troad becomes a thin, hazy line, the sensation of being between worlds takes hold. They arrive at the land of the Lotus Eaters. It is a place where the air feels like velvet. There is no wind here, only a perpetual golden afternoon. The trees are heavy with pale, soft fruit. The people move as if walking underwater. The fruit is offered with an invitation to simply be. One companion takes a bite. He does not fall into a trance. He simply sits down on the grass and looks at his hands. He looks at the scars on his knuckles and observes them fading into the golden light. The memory of the wooden horse and the weight of the armor dissolve. He feels light, as though he could drift away like a dandelion seed. The men return to the ship, not with anger, but with a quiet, profound stillness. And as they row away, the rhythm of the oars returns. Dip, pull, rise, silence. The salt air clears the mind, and the movement becomes part of the sea once more. The oars do not hurry. They enter the water with a hollow, rounded sound and leave it without splash. At first, the rhythm belongs to effort. Muscles remember the weight of bronze and shield. But gradually, the body relearns the sea. Hands close around worn wood, polished by years of salt and repetition. The oar becomes less an object than an extension of bone. The benches creak softly in unison, and the movement becomes part of the sea once more. The oars do not hurry. They enter the water with a hollow, rounded sound and leave it without splash. Muscles remember the weight of bronze and shield. But gradually, the body relearns the sea. Hands close around worn wood, polished by years of salt and repetition. The oar becomes less an object than an extension of bone. The benches creak softly in unison. A collective cadence forms, not imposed, not forced. The sea accepts the intrusion of each blade and then closes again. Nothing is conquered. Nothing is resisted. Above them, the sky widens without commentary. Land reveals itself in slow increments, a shadow gathering weight as it rises from the horizon's seam. Stone rises from water. Its slopes uneven. Its edges softened by distance. No towers, no walls. Only rock, sparse trees, and a quiet shoreline curved like a resting hand. The ship slows. Oars dip with deliberate gentleness. Wood meets sand with a muted sigh. The men walk between low shrubs and scattered rock. They come upon a cave. Its entrance is wide, shadowed, and unadorned. They stumble upon a hollow in the earth. A wide-shadowed entrance unscarred by craft or hand. Inside, the limestone vaults ascend into a sovereign blackness. The air remains a ghost of the wild. the pungent musk of raw wool, and the cold, lingering scent of damp soil. A change gathers in the air, not sound at first, but weight. The light at the entrance narrows slowly, as though something vast has paused before the opening of the cave. A shape fills the threshold, broad, uneven. For a moment it remains there, neither entering nor retreating, and the cavern itself seems to listen. Then the figure bends slightly to pass beneath the stone arch. The floor receives the weight of each step with a deep, patient tremor. Only now does its form become clear. Polyphemus. The cave dims. The last light thins into a few quiet beams that linger along the stone walls. The giant moves with an unhurried rhythm. The sound echoes softly through the cavern. Slow, hollow, patient. His voice enters the cavern like stone shifting against stone. Odysseus answers from the shadow. His own voice scarcely more than a thread of sound. He offers a name that is not quite a name. No one. The word rests lightly in the air of the cave. No rank, no kingdom, no story to defend. Only a voice among breathing creatures in the dark. Outside, the sea continues its patient breathing against the cliffs. Night passes slowly after that. When morning finally comes, pale light seeps again through the entrance as the great stone rolls aside. The sheep begin to move outward, one by one, toward the open air. Beneath their thick wool, pressed close to their warm bodies, the men cling silently. There is the smell of lanolin, the slow rhythm of animal hearts. Step by careful step, they pass beneath the hand of the giant, who waits at the threshold, feeling the backs of his flock as they leave the cave. But he does not think to search beneath them. One by one, the sheep pass. One by one, the men slip into the morning. Outside, the air tastes of salt and sunlight. The shore lies quiet. Soon the oars will find the water again, and the dark mouth of the cave will shrink slowly behind them, becoming once more just another hollow in the cliffs of a wide and patient sea. The island recedes without accusation. Its cliffs lose detail, then color, then form. What occurred inside the cave does not follow them as noise. It lingers as density, a weight the body remembers even when the mind has already turned outward. The sea does what it always does. It receives. It levels. It restores proportion. The men feel the after-image of shadow behind their eyes, the echo of stone meeting stone. Yet the rhythm of the hull against the tide begins its quiet work. The name No One remains suspended in the air between them. The stars are the map by which the journey is measured. A silent celestial geometry. The constellations move in a stately arc. The Milky Way is a luminous river overhead. The ship moves with the same logic as the planets. The light of the deck lanterns is small and fragile against the vastness. Inside the circle of light, the world is tactile. The grain of wood, the texture of canvas, the warmth of a cloak. Outside, there is the infinite dark and the shifting mountains of the sea. The men are shadows on the benches, their forms merging with the timber. The narrative thins as the night deepens. The ship is being exhaled across the surface. The only sound is the rush of water and the occasional snap of the canvas as it adjusts to a new gust. It is a state of being that is neither here nor there, but always in the process of becoming. Each mile is a mile of new perception. The water is a dense black, reflecting only the brightest stars. The breath of the men remains steady. The ship continues its passage across the wide, breathing dark. The water is depth. It is a space large enough for thoughts to loosen. The man remains on the deck, feeling the vessel through his spine. Time behaves differently here. It widens. Moments settle beside one another, expanding quietly outward. The sea receives the memory, and the shadow without argument. It allows the weight of the day to dissolve into the movement of the tide. The horizon is no longer a concept that holds weight. It has dissolved into the haze, replaced by the absolute authority of the open sea. The ship moves, the sea provides, the night endures. The distance between the ship and the island increases without announcement. The shoreline does not retreat dramatically. It simply thins. Its stone surfaces losing definition as light gathers behind them. The cliffs that held the cave become variations in shadow. Then a darker fold within the coastline. Then something indistinguishable from the rest of the earth's quiet curvature. The men do not speak of it. The oars enter and leave the water with a steadier measure now. The earlier strain replaced by a tempo that asks nothing more than continuation. Morning advances with restraint. The sea changes color gradually, moving from a deep mineral blue toward a muted reflective gray. As the sun rises behind a thin veil of high cloud. The surface is not glass, but it is close to it. Long, low undulations pass beneath the hull, lifting the vessel almost imperceptibly before setting it back into place. The wood responds with a softened creak, a language that has less to do with resistance than with accommodation. Each plank holds its own memory of tension and release. The ropes, still damp with night, begin to dry in the growing light, tightening slightly as the fibers contract. Small sounds travel easily in the open air. The brush of fabric as a cloak is shifted over a shoulder. The hollow tap of a wooden cup set down near the mast. The muted scrape of a sandal against deck grain, worn smooth by years of salt. No one marks the hour. The sun is sufficient indication. It rises into a pale disk, not yet sharp, and the warmth spreads slowly across the length of the ship. Bronze fittings along the rail absorb the light first. The smell of pitch deepens as heat settles into the seams. Somewhere near the bow, a length of cord is coiled and recoiled, its fibers tested between thumb and forefinger, more from habit than necessity. The act is unremarkable, but it belongs to the rhythm of passage, as essential as the measured pull of the oars. By midday, the island is no longer visible. There is only open water in every direction. A wide, breathing expanse that does not insist on being crossed quickly. The wind holds steady, neither rising nor failing. It rests against the sail in a broad, patient pressure that keeps the canvas curved, but not strained. The mast stands without complaint. Its shadow falls across the deck and shifts by degrees, marking time in a way that requires no interpretation. A gull follows for a while, circling at a distance, then turns back toward land without ceremony. The sky clears further, revealing a depth that seems less like height and more like an inverted sea suspended above the one below. The men eat in silence, grain softened in water, olives preserved in brine, a portion of cheese kept from spoiling by careful wrapping. The food carries the taste of stored earth and long sun. It is neither feast nor deprivation. It is sustenance taken without discussion. Afterwards, some lie back against bundled rope or folded sailcloth, closing their eyes not from exhaustion, but from the simple weight of light pressing gently through their lids. Others remain seated, watching the thin line where sea and sky meet without attempting to measure it. The afternoon stretches without incident. The sea darkens slightly as a deeper current moves beneath the surface, altering the color from below. The change is subtle, visible only in the way the light refracts along the hull. Small threads of foam gather and dissolve in the wake. There is no urgency in their disappearance. Toward evening, the air cools. The heat stored in the deck releases slowly, rising in a faint exhalation that carries with it the mingled scents of salt, wool, and sun-warmed timber. the sky begins its gradual turn toward indigo. One by one, the brighter stars return to their fixed positions. They do not emerge all at once, but assert themselves carefully, as if testing the clarity of the atmosphere before committing to it. The oars are drawn in as the wind steadies enough to carry the ship alone. Wood slides against wood with a low, rounded tone. The island, with its stone threshold and dim interior, has folded into memory as seamlessly as the shoreline of Troy before it. Both remain somewhere behind the curve of the sea, inaccessible now, because the water between has widened. Night settles fully, though it does so without heaviness. The surface of the sea reflects only the brightest points overhead, each star trembling in the slight disturbance created by the hull's passage. The lantern near the stern is lit and shielded, its circle of light contained and modest. Within that circle, details remain close and tangible. The worn edge of the tiller, the grain of the deck, and the faint outline of a repaired crack sealed carefully with pitch. Beyond it, the dark resumes its quiet authority. The ship continues forward at a pace that seems less chosen than permitted. There is no visible destination, only the steady orientation of mast and sail, aligned with currents that are felt but not seen. The water parts and closes, leaving no record of its division. If a sound persists, it is the soft convergence of hull and tide. A muted consonance repeated so often it ceases to stand out from the larger hush. The wind alters slightly after midnight, cooling further as it travels across open distance. Cloaks are drawn tighter. The sail responds with a small adjustment. These are not events. They are minor negotiations between wood and air. Hours pass without announcement. The constellations shift incrementally westward. Sea deepens in color until it resembles a continuous plane of dark metal, polished by unseen hands. There is no boundary visible between one stretch of water and the next. Each swell resembles the one before it, though none repeats precisely. The sameness is not monotony. It is continuity without interruption. By the time the night has reached its deepest register, the ship has become little more than a darker shape moving within a wide field of dark. The lantern burns lower. The breathing of the men blends with the breath of the sea until the distinction thins. The sail holds. The ropes remain taut. Nothing declares itself as ending. Nothing suggests arrival. The water continues to bear its weight without resistance, and the vessel accepts the passage granted to it. For several days they sail without incident. The wind holds from the west, not forceful, not reluctant. The men speak little. Sound returns to its ordinary scale. Rope through calloused hands, wood answering pressure, the soft division of water along the hull. Then again, on the horizon, an island forms that does not resemble the others. It stands with circular precision, as though measured. Its outer rim appears uniform, faintly metallic in the distance, reflecting light differently than stone. A wall surrounds the island, high, continuous, bronze-toned in the afternoon glare. No towers break its curve, no visible gates interrupt its line. The wind shifts slightly as they near it, not in strength, but in quality. It carries layered currents within it, cross directions that do not correspond to the sea below. The sail trembles, corrects, trembles again. The mast hums faintly, as if registering multiple instructions at once. They enter through an opening, barely visible until they are upon it. Inside, the air is different. It circulates in contained patterns, rising and falling along the interior of the wall. Here resides Aeolo, keeper of winds. His presence is marked not by size, but by calibration. The air near him behaves with unusual obedience. The palace is structured in concentric balance. Open corridors allow wind to pass through without obstruction. Fabric panels lift and settle in measured intervals. Conversations occur in low tones, as though raised voices might disturb some delicate arrangement of currents. They remain on the island longer than expected. Days accumulate without urgency. Odysseus speaks with Aeolo at length, not of glory, but of direction, of distance, of return. On the 30th morning, Aeolo brings forth an object. It is a leather bag, tightly bound at the neck with a cord of braided silver thread. The hide is thick, darkened by oil and handling. When set upon the ground, it does not collapse. It retains shape. It holds tension from within. Aeolo explains without flourish. Inside are the winds that would oppose their journey. Every cross-current, every disruptive gust, each contrary force sealed and contained. Only the steady west wind remains free to guide them home. He ties the cord himself, fingers moving with deliberate economy. The knot is complex, but not ornamental. It is functional. The bag is placed aboard. At first, it draws no attention. It rests near the mast, secured with additional rope. The men begin to feel the strangeness of ease. Muscles that have known constant compensation now operate without strain. Sleep comes deeper. Food tastes sharper. Even conversation grows easier. On the 9th day, just before dusk, a line appears ahead. A low contour against the thinning light. The air changes, not in direction, but in density. The men stand more frequently, adjusting position along the rail to confirm what their eyes report. The coastline grows fractionally clearer with each hour. Odysseus recognizes it before he allows himself to believe it. Ithaca. Odysseus remains awake longer than he should. His hands do not leave the tiller. He has not slept fully since departure from Aeolo's island. He measures distance by the angle of stars and the set of current. The leather bag rests where it has always rested. It does not vibrate. It does not emit sound. But it is heavy in a way that suggests more than hide and cord. For 9 days, it has remained untouched, not hidden, not displayed, just present. The leather has darkened slightly where salt has settled into its surface. Fine creases mark the places where it was folded long ago. The silver thread at its neck catches the last of the declining light with a dull persistence. No sound escapes it, yet the air near it feels denser. One of the men passes beside it under the pretense of adjusting a coil of rope. His hand hovers there for a moment, not touching, only measuring its weight without contact. The sail remains full. The coastline remains visible. Ithaca has not receded. A gull crosses the bow and disappears toward land. The ship maintains its flawless line. Odysseus breathes steadily at the tiller. His eyes follow the horizon. He does not look toward the mast. The bag rests. It does not shift with the roll of the hull. It resists movement, as though anchored by something that is not rope. Another glance passes between two rowers. With no suspicion, nor accusation. The cord is intricate, yes, but cords are meant to be untied. The sea continues its low conversation against the planks. Nothing has changed. Nothing demands change. The coastline sharpens by imperceptible degrees. The light lowers, and still, the bag remains closed. Some of the crew begin to consider it. They have watched it for 9 days, watched Odysseus check its bindings, watched him sit near it during meals. No explanation beyond winds fully satisfies the imagination of men who have seen gold carried in similar fashion. Whispers do not rise above the level of breath. Tehei move laterally, from bench to bench. He has not opened it. He has not shown its contents. Odysseus, at last, allows himself to sit. Just for a moment. The wind remains perfect. The sail holds. The ship requires no correction. His eyes close. It is not deep sleep. It is the collapse that follows sustained vigilance. The men gather near the mast. The bag is untied from its securing rope. It is heavier than expected. One of them tests the knot. The silver cord resists. It would be simple to look, just to confirm. The horizon remains steady. Ithaca does not vanish. Fingers work at the binding. The knot loosens not with violence, but with incremental persistence. The leather mouth opens a fraction. At first, nothing happens. Then the air alters, not as a gust, not as an explosion, as absence. The steady west wind thins abruptly. As though withdrawn, the sail slackens. The surface of the sea flattens unnaturally. For a suspended second, there is silence. The sky shifts tone as clouds are driven across it with sudden acceleration. The sea, previously aligned, fractures into intersecting swells. The hull yaws sharply. Oars crash loose against their brackets. Ithaca disappears behind a wall of spray. The men attempt to retie what cannot be retied. The cord whips free from their hands. Wind tears speech apart before it forms. Odysseus wakes into motion, not understanding at first what has altered, only that the geometry of the world has broken. He reaches the mast. He sees the open leather collapsing inward, emptied. There's no singular wave that defines the catastrophe. It is a sustained disorder. Direction ceases to hold meaning. The ship is driven not backward in a straight line, but in violent spirals. Currents reclaiming space previously denied them. Night falls within the storm as if pulled down prematurely. Hours pass in relentless correction. Muscles return to strain. Wood returns to protest. The sea reclaims its own alignment. When light finally separates water from sky again, the wind has stabilized. Not westward. They know the outline before they admit it. The same bronze wall, the same circular harbor. The wall reflects the morning light exactly as it had before. Not brighter, not dimmer, unaltered by their brief departure. The entrance appears in the same measured proportion, as though the sea itself has drawn them along a line already traced. No one speaks as they cross the threshold. The air within the harbor behaves differently from the wind outside. It moves in contained spirals, rising and settling against the inner curve of bronze. The water forms small, obedient eddies that dissolve without urgency. The palace remains as it was. Fabric panels lift and lower with calibrated grace. Columns cast the same length of shadow across the stone. Days ago, they stood here believing alignment had been granted. Now they stand again, bearing the shape of interruption. Odysseus steps onto the stone quay slowly. His boots leave faint impressions in the dust that will be erased before midday. Iolaus receives them without surprise. His expression is neither anger nor compassion. Iolaus does not approach immediately. He waits at a measured distance, as though allowing the air between them to arrange itself before words are introduced. He listens to Odysseus's explanation in full. The long wandering, the opened bag, the sudden storm that carried them back across the same dark water. When at last he speaks, his voice does not rise. It carries evenly, like a wind that has already chosen its direction. It is the quiet recognition of pattern. When the telling ends, the Keeper of Winds remains silent for a moment. His gaze travels briefly toward the ship resting near the shore, where the crew waits in an uneasy stillness. Then he speaks plainly. No god supports those so persistently undone by misfortune. To aid them further would be to oppose a will greater than his own. There is no anger in the words, only decision. And so there is no dramatic dismissal, only refusal. The audience dissolves quietly. Odysseus inclines his head once, not in protest, but in acceptance of what cannot be altered. Then he turns back toward the shore. The men follow him without speaking. Their footsteps across the stone carry the small fatigue of those who have already traveled too far. The ship waits where they left it. Its hull rests softly against the breathing edge of the water. This time, no leather bag lies near the mast. No careful knot gathers the wandering winds. Beyond the bronze walls of the island, the air moves freely now, dividing, turning, choosing its own uncertain paths. The sail rises slowly. It fills unevenly. Small corrections return to the hands of the sailors. The oars dip once more into the patient surface of the sea. Behind them, the island begins its quiet withdrawal. At first, its cliffs remain clear against the sky. Then distance softens their edges. Soon the island becomes a circle upon the water, then a curve, then nothing distinguishable from the horizon. Ithaca is no longer visible. The sea remains. The benches receive them again. Hands close around wood worn smooth by years of salt and long effort. The sail shifts above them, adjusting to winds that no longer belong to anyone. No promise travels within them now. Only movement. Behind them, nothing can be seen. Ahead of them, nothing insists. The hull resumes its low conversation with the tide. Water sliding past wood. Wood answering water. Above, the stars return to their immense distances. Slowly, almost without noticing, the ship settles again into its oldest rhythm. Forward. Forward across a surface that does not hold memory. The sea does not narrow. It does not conclude. It carries the vessel onward into a darkness that is neither hostile nor kind, only vast. And the ship, small within that breadth, moves as it has always moved, without declaration, without witness, across water that does not remember and does not refuse. Thank you for drifting with the pillow vault. May the old stories settle quietly beside your own. This journey continues in the dark. Until the next crossing.